Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and man, that boy Rivera is not playing about some Anthony Lynn. That boy Rivera is in California to interview Anthony Lynn in person. He went to him. 49ers lose their playoff game on Sunday. Rivera is in California on Wednesday to interview him in person. Does that make him the lead candidate? I mean, we don't exactly know the full details of how other interviews went, whether they were virtually or the guy came to them or whatever, but the fact that Rivera is there does say something. And of course, we got to dive into all of the other 5 guys that we've already interviewed. Of course, who we should prefer, who we shouldn't prefer, who I prefer, all of that type of stuff. And of course, we're going to mainly talk about Anthony Lynn in this video. So we got to talk about why we should not hire this guy as offensive coordinator. What are his positives and negatives? Of course, we got to bring some stats. I mean, it's Rico Street Schools. How we not going to do stats? We got to take a look at his history and why it's kind of weird to see somebody go from a running backs coach to an offensive coordinator. Even as a guy that's been an offensive coordinator before and even a head coach before, going from running backs coach for the 49ers to offensive coordinator on another team, a little weird. But then again, when you're coming from Kyle Shanahan's umbrella, kind of raises your stock a little bit. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up every Sunday for the call-in live show where y'all call in, open up the phone lines, and you call in. You voice your opinion, you ask whatever questions you may have. It could be offensive coordinator stuff like this. It can be franchise quarterback, draft, free agency. It can even be outside of the Commanders. It can be basketball, football, whatever, Pro Bowl, whatever you want to talk about. Make sure y'all pull up every Sunday for the call-in show. Last week, we talked about a lot of things, including who's more irreplaceable, Daron Payne or Montez Sweat. We talk about things like that, a lot of debatable topics. So make sure you pull up every Sunday for that, of course. And without further ado, let's get it. All right, so the Commanders are interviewing Anthony Lynn today for the offensive coordinator opening. We've officially interviewed 6 guys, including Anthony Lynn. Eric Bieniemy is another guy who's on the way. Other than that, we don't really have any more candidates because anybody else that we've tried to interview, they've already said no, or they're looking elsewhere, maybe for like head coaching jobs and things like that. So as far as the guys that we have already interviewed and plan to interview at some point and have requested the interview, but they didn't turn it down, is these 6 guys, including Anthony Lynn and then Eric Bieniemy, who we haven't interviewed yet. That's the only 7 realistic candidates as of right now. That man, Ron Rivera, drove from Pebble Beach, the whole golf thing going on, to the Bay Area to meet with the 49ers running backs coach. That is insane. He is not playing. But remember how yesterday everybody was tripping over Ron Rivera being at the Pebble Beach golf thing with Aaron Rodgers? I mean, him driving to the Bay Area to go interview Anthony Lynn didn't even necessarily cross my mind. So my thing was, is he trying to talk to Aaron Rodgers? Is he trying to butter him up, get a feel for how Aaron Rodgers feels? Because this does seem like the year that Aaron Rodgers is most likely to leave Green Bay. And maybe Ron Rivera, desperate in his final year, potentially, for the Commanders. I mean, definitely his 4th year. He always talks about this 5-year plan, this 3-year plan, all of this type of stuff. This is his 4th year, and we should have made the playoffs this year. Easy schedule, weaker NFC. So he could be desperate, and bringing in Aaron Rodgers could buy him some time and maybe impress the new owner. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, first of all, would allow you to win more games than we won last year, even though you got to remember the Commanders won more games than the Packers last year, but the Commanders do have a better team outside of quarterback than the Packers. The quarterback can't do everything. But I could see why Ron Rivera would love to bring in Aaron Rodgers. So that was my initial thoughts on it. Of course, some people were panicking, and of course, like people like the Junkies were trying to make more drama out of it than normal. I mean, they literally tweeted, "Are you okay with Commanders coach Ron Rivera playing golf at Pebble Beach this weekend when he still hasn't hired an offensive coordinator?" It's a weird way to word that, but that's how they always do things. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of celebrities there, man. It's not like it's only Aaron Rodgers and Ron Rivera. I mean, you even have Alex Smith there. I believe Kyle Allen is there. My dog Schoolboy Q is over there. I mean, the list goes on. Steve Young, a whole bunch of people. Paul Gasol is really random. Larry Fitzgerald, it's a really random assortment of people, athletes and celebrities that aren't even athletes. But another reason is some people were probably panicking, even outside of not having an offensive coordinator hired, like the Junkies were trying to insinuate. But also, that means Ron Rivera's not at the Senior Bowl. And I plan on doing a video on this because I do want to dive into the Senior Bowl and a lot of its top players. But the Commanders have sent 3 front office people to the Senior Bowl. And then we also have 4 positional coaches there as well. So it's not like Ron Rivera even needs to be there. And I know a lot of people don't even like Ron Rivera having GM responsibilities on the team. So for those of y'all that don't like Ron Rivera making any personnel decisions and roster decisions, this should be a good thing for you. But either way, let's get back to the Anthony Lynn situation. Well, first of all, we always got to look at it as, does Anthony Lynn even really want to come here? There are still a lot of vacant offensive coordinator positions available around the NFL, man. You got the Ravens, the Titans, the Cardinals, the Cowboys, after they just let Kellen Moore go, and I believe he just went to the Chargers to fill that vacancy. And then the Buccaneers, the Texans, the Colts, the Panthers, and us. There's quite a few options out there, man. And I mean, I've already stated in several videos and live streams why I feel like the Commanders could be both the best option and the worst option for a potential offensive coordinator, especially for a guy like Eric Bieniemy who could potentially want to become a head coach. I can see why the Commanders could be the most attractive option and give you the most opportunity, mostly because of the fact that the current head coaches here job isn't safe. You could come in here as an offensive coordinator this year and then be the head coach the following year. That's a very realistic possibility with a new owner. I mean, a new owner came into Carolina and fired Ron Rivera mid-season. He didn't even finish the season. That's how we ended up with him. I mean, I've done full video breakdowns of the positives and negatives to becoming an offensive coordinator for the Commanders, but that's one of the main reasons, and that's why we could be attracted to somebody like Anthony Lynn if he wants to become a head coach again. Now let's take a look at Anthony Lynn as far as the Commanders go. What's our viewpoint on it? And first of all, just a quick dive into his history. Anthony Lynn, who has been an NFL head coach since his time, with the Denver Broncos in 2000, so a veteran. You know, Rivera likes his veteran, trustworthy guys, and with this job on the line, he may not go with the younger, creative offensive mind, high ceiling, high potential, maybe boom or bust type of guy like a Thomas Brown, who's my favorite, or maybe even an Eric Bieniemy. He may be leaning more to like an Anthony Lynn or a Pat Shermer, who's been doing it for a very long time, or an Eric Stootsville, instead of like a Charles London. And Anthony Lynn fits that profile. He's been coaching in the NFL since the year 2000. In his first season with the 49ers after serving as the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator in 2021. And he just finished up a season with being the 49ers running backs coach after being the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator last season in 2021. Anthony Lynn has coached for 6 other teams in his NFL career, including 3 seasons with the Los Angeles Chargers as their head coach. Anthony Lynn has also coached with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Dallas Cowboys, Cleveland Browns, New York Jets, and Buffalo Bills. He has been a running backs coach 7 times in his career, an assistant head coach 3 times, and an offensive coordinator twice. And he now joins a pretty decent list of offensive coordinator candidates, being the 6th one that we've interviewed now. It was Pat Shermer, Ken Zampese, who's already in-house as our current QB's coach, Charles London, Eric Stootsville, Thomas Brown, and now Anthony Lynn. So is Anthony Lynn the best candidate for us out of these 6? Well, let's take a look at some of the stats first. Well, first of all, in 4 seasons as a head coach with the Chargers, his offense ranked top 10 3 times, and he does come with a strong running game. And if Rivera wants to run the ball as much as he says that he does, Anthony Lynn could be the lead candidate because of that alone. And you got to remember, in 2017, the Chargers were 9th in points scored in the NFL, with him being the head coach. In 2018, with him being the head coach, they were 7th, and then it got a little ugly after that. I mean, but 16th in 2019 isn't that bad. I mean, the Commanders with a top 10 scoring offense is easily playoff bound. With the way our defense is set up and how special teams is improved, even though we got to figure out Joey Sly as far as the kicker goes, got to see how much we can trust him. But with this defense, if our offense is top 10 in scoring, we easily make the playoffs this past season for sure, and we could potentially have a bright future ahead of us. And remember, he went 12-4 with Phillip Rivers in his first year as the Chargers head coach. That was the 2017 season where they were 9th in points scored in the NFL. But again, like I mentioned earlier in the intro, it's a little weird to become an offensive coordinator after being a running backs coach. I mean, he's been an offensive coordinator before. He's been a head coach before. But, you know, quarterbacks, offensive linemen, and tight ends make more sense as offensive coordinators. They get to see the game from both sides. Blocking, route running, protections, all of that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Whereas a running backs coach, your viewpoint of an offense is a little bit more narrow, especially in today's NFL where it's a passing league and passing the ball is far more vital than being able to run the ball well. So it's a little weird, but then again, he's been a head coach, he's been an offensive coordinator before, so it's not like he's only been a running backs coach and we're potentially giving him an offensive coordinator job straight from that with no prior experience in any other way. But at the same time, to look at another negative, even though he has success with the Chargers as head coach, you got to remember he had Ken Wisenhunt as his offensive coordinator, and he had Eagles current head coach as his wide receivers coach, and the Eagles current offensive coordinator Shane Steichen as his QB's coach. You could definitely argue that was more Shane Steichen, Nick Sirianni, and Ken Wisenhunt than Anthony Lynn. Now, it is on one end pretty cool that he can even have the respect of those guys and to see the talent in those guys to even give them the opportunity to be those type of guys on his roster. I mean, his eye for talent, at the very least, is pretty spectacular in itself. And to be able to command a room like that and lead a room like that, but we're not bringing you here to do that. Ron Rivera is the leader and the commander of the Commanders. We're bringing you here to be able to run the offense and call plays, most notably call plays, because Scott Turner, he was a bad play caller, but he was pretty decent at a lot of other things. The main reason he got fired was because of his poor play calling. So if Anthony Lynn can't do that well, and I'm not too sure about that at all, then what's the point? And again, I love Shane Steichen. I mean, I wish we could have brought him in as an offensive coordinator. I feel like he would have been a home run hit. I mean, he's the one that had Justin Herbert looking that good his rookie season. He's the one that turned Jalen Hurts into what he is now. I was not a big Jalen Hurts fan coming out of college, and even after that season where he flashed a little bit towards the end of the season when he finally got a chance to play, I still wasn't a believer. And then Shane Steichen came in and turned him into MVP candidate. So if you're talking about QB developers and a guy that can design an offense around a young athletic quarterback with some mobility but still fairly raw in certain aspects of their game, he's your guy. So it's just like with Nick Sirianni, who's a really good head coach for the Eagles, even as annoying as he can be, Ken Wisenhunt as an offensive coordinator, and Shane Steichen as your QB's coach, all of that genius in your coaching staff, how much did you do? So on the positive, he has had some good moments, especially as a head coach with the Chargers, but how much credit does he even get for that? So going into this whole process, and even after interviewing Anthony Lynn, I still definitely prefer Thomas Brown as my number one, Eric Bieniemy as my number two, and then even between Anthony Lynn and Pat Shurmur, I'd probably lean towards Pat Shurmur because Pat Shurmur is a QB whisperer and Anthony Lynn is a running backs whisperer. Granted, running backs have had their best seasons with Anthony Lynn as the running backs coach. He has a rich history of that. So Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson will probably have breakout seasons, especially like Antonio Gibson, who's been here for multiple years, could potentially have like a breakout season under him. But at the same time, do you prefer Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson to have a breakout season, or do you prefer Sam Howell to be a potential franchise quarterback and for him to have a breakout season? In the passing league, I would prefer Howell to be at his best than Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson to be at their best. I would prefer both, but I would prefer a QB's whisper over a running back's whisper, in my honest opinion, especially in 2023. Maybe if it was 1980, then Anthony Lynn, yeah. But right now, if I had to choose between Pat Shurmur and Anthony Lynn, I'd probably go Pat Shurmur. But then again, I don't prefer either of those guys. I prefer Thomas Brown and Eric Bieniemy easily, and I'm a little intrigued by Charles London. A little bit of mystery there as well. But I'm not really interested in Ken Zampese at all, especially the last things we saw him doing with the Bengals. And then again, I'm not really interested in Pat Shurmur or Anthony Lynn. But if I had to choose between Pat Shurmur and Anthony Lynn, again, do I prefer the guy that unlocks quarterbacks or the guy that unlocks running backs? I prefer the guy that unlocks quarterbacks. I mean, he's the guy that gets most of the credit for that amazing Case Keenum year with the Vikings, the best year he's ever had. Easily the best seasons that Sam Bradford's ever had. Statistically, the best season that Daniel Jones has ever had. And that's just to start it off as far as his rich history with developing quarterbacks and getting the most out of them. But again, I still don't even necessarily prefer him, but I would prefer him over an Anthony Lynn. And then lastly, before we get up out of here, FedEx Field is advertising the fact that Beyonce will make a stop on her tour at FedEx Field on August 5th. Is that a hint that Jay-Z will be an owner, or at the very least a co-owner of that exact field and the team that plays there by the time she performs there? Really interesting. No, that's a little off topic, but I did want to go ahead and mention that and throw that in there. Maybe a little something there. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video, especially the whole Anthony Lynn situation, the good and the bad. Is he your preferred offensive coordinator candidate? If you had to list your top 6 in order right now, actually go ahead and throw Eric Bieniemy in there as a 7th. What order would you have your candidates? Who's your number 1? Who's your number 7? And all in between. And of course, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything, and stay tuned for all of the content because I'm coming out with videos back to back to back and live streams. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.